Have you noticed yourself asking deeper questions lately? The way you stare out the window, lost in thought, or how you've started to question choices that once seemed so obvious. That subtle shift happening inside you isn't random. What if I told you that this growing introspection is actually your soul preparing you for a profound transformation? There's a hidden pattern to these contemplative moments that most people never recognize, but once you understand what's happening, you'll see your entire life journey through new eyes. Today, I'm going to share with you what the great philosopher Immanuel Kant discovered about this process, and how it reveals the extraordinary changes awaiting you on the other side of this introspective phase. We've all been told that questioning ourselves too deeply leads nowhere good, that overthinking creates anxiety, that we should stay positive and keep moving forward. Our culture celebrates constant action and visible progress. We're trained to see introspection as unproductive, perhaps even self-indulgent. Yet there's a growing unease with this approach, isn't there? A sense that something essential is missing when we rush through life without examining its deeper meaning. What you're feeling isn't dysfunction. It's actually your consciousness expanding beyond the limited framework our society has constructed. At the heart of this experience lies what Kant called the transcendental aesthetic, our mind's innate capacity to organize and make sense of our experiences through certain fundamental categories. Imagine your consciousness as a prism through which all of life's experiences must pass. When you become more introspective, you're not simply ruminating. You're actually recalibrating this prism, preparing it to perceive reality in a more profound and comprehensive way. It's like adjusting the lens of a camera to capture details that were always there, but remained invisible at lower resolutions. Your questions and contemplations aren't random. They're your soul's way of upgrading its operating system to accommodate more truth, more meaning, and more authentic connection with the world. This process unfolds through 5 distinct phases of introspection, each serving a crucial purpose in your transformation. The first is what I call phenomenal questioning. This is when you begin noticing inconsistencies in your day-to-day reality. Perhaps you've caught yourself wondering why certain achievements don't bring the fulfillment they promised, or why relationships that look perfect on paper leave you feeling somehow disconnected. This isn't merely doubt. It's actually your intuitive recognition that what Kant called phenomena, the world as it appears to our senses, doesn't align with the noumena, the deeper reality beyond appearances. This questioning feels uncomfortable, precisely because it's challenging the foundation of how you've been taught to perceive reality. The wisdom here is profound. Your dissatisfaction isn't a sign that something is wrong with you, but rather evidence that your consciousness is ready to perceive something more authentic than what the conventional world offers. The second phase is categorical imperative awareness. During this stage, you become increasingly sensitive to the moral contradictions in your life choices. You might find yourself unable to ignore ethical implications that you previously dismissed. This manifests as a growing discomfort with actions that feel misaligned with your deeper values. Whether it's a career that serves profit but not purpose, relationships based on convenience rather than genuine connection, or daily habits that numb rather than enliven you. What's happening is that Kant's concept of the categorical imperative, the principle that true moral actions must be universalizable, is awakening within you. The psychological mechanism at work is your innate moral intuition, breaking through layers of social conditioning that taught you to compromise your authentic values. The hidden message here is liberating. This moral dissonance isn't making life more difficult. It's actually clearing away the false compromises that have been preventing you from experiencing genuine fulfillment. The third phase is transcendental idealism recognition. This is when you start to understand that your entire perception of reality is shaped by the structures of your consciousness. You begin to see how your assumptions, beliefs, and mental frameworks literally create the world you experience. This often manifests as moments where you suddenly see situations from entirely different perspectives, or when you realize how your emotional state colors everything around you. The psychological process underlying this phase is your mind's growing ability to observe itself in action, a metacognitive leap that Kant understood as essential to human freedom. The wisdom contained in this phase is revolutionary. You are not merely a passive observer of reality, but an active creator of your experience, which means you hold the power to fundamentally transform your life by examining and reshaping these internal structures. The fourth phase is autonomy emergence. This is when you begin to distinguish between choices made from authentic self-determination versus those driven by external pressures, social expectations, or unconscious programming. You might notice a growing dissatisfaction with decisions that don't come from your deeper self, even if they win you approval from others. This manifests as a new clarity about what truly matters to you, often accompanied by the courage to make choices that others might not understand. The psychological mechanism here is what Kant called the emergence of true freedom, the capacity to act from rational self-determination, rather than being determined by external forces or internal impulses. The profound message in this phase is that genuine freedom doesn't mean doing whatever you want. It means aligning your choices with the authentic values of your higher self. The final phase is noumenal glimpsing. In these rare but profound moments, you experience brief insights into what Kant called the thing in itself, reality beyond the constructs of your mind. These often come as fleeting sensations of profound interconnection, timelessness, or direct knowing that transcends logical thought. You might experience this when deeply engaged in creative work, in moments of profound connection with others, or in states of deep meditation or prayer. What's happening psychologically is that your consciousness is temporarily transcending its own structural limitations, allowing you to experience reality without the usual filters. The wisdom here is transformative. These glimpses reveal that beyond all your questions and struggles lies a coherent wholeness that makes sense of everything you've been experiencing. I'm curious about where you find yourself in this journey. What phase resonates most with your current experience? Share in the comments below. Which of these 5 phases of introspection feels most familiar to you right now? And what specific questions or insights have been arising? Something powerful happens when we recognize that our inner experiences aren't random, but part of a meaningful pattern. Type, I'm currently in the WS phase, and I've been noticing nasams. Your sharing might be exactly what someone else needs to make sense of their own journey. Now, let me share a practical framework for navigating this introspective transformation in a way that honors both Kant's philosophical wisdom and your lived experience. I call this the transcendental navigation practice, and it begins with deliberate perspective shifting. Set aside 15 minutes each day to examine one aspect of your life from what Kant would call the transcendental standpoint, the viewpoint that recognizes how your own consciousness shapes your experience. Choose something you're currently struggling with, perhaps a relationship difficulty, a career decision, or an emotional pattern that keeps arising. Instead of asking, "What should I do about this?" ask instead, "How is my way of perceiving creating this experience?" Notice the immediate shift this creates in your relationship to the problem. Next, practice what I call categorical clarification. Identify the core principles that would guide your actions if you were legislating for all humanity, not just making a personal choice. Ask yourself, if everyone made choices based on the same reasoning I'm using now, what kind of world would that create? This isn't about imposing rigid rules, but about discovering the values that resonate with your authentic self. Write these principles down, not as absolutes, but as evolving insights into your own moral compass. The third step involves noumenal listening. Create regular moments of receptive silence, where you're not trying to figure anything out, but simply opening yourself to what lies beyond your conceptual understanding. This might look like meditation, time in nature, or simply sitting quietly without an agenda. The key is to temporarily suspend your analytical mind and allow yourself to be receptive to insights that arrive from beyond your current frameworks. Pay special attention to the subtle knowing that emerges in these spaces, not emotional reactions or logical conclusions, but the direct understanding that simply presents itself when your thinking mind grows quiet. As you practice these three approaches, you'll likely notice certain patterns in how insights emerge and how resistance arises. Document these patterns, looking specifically for the questions that create the most spaciousness in your awareness and the thoughts that create constriction. Over time, you'll develop what Kant might call your transcendental compass, an intuitive sensitivity to which mental movements lead toward greater truth and which lead toward greater limitation. What makes this approach so powerful is that it doesn't require you to adopt any specific belief system. Rather, it helps you discover the inherent structures of your own consciousness, the patterns through which you already make sense of your experience. The answers that emerge won't be imposed from outside, but will arise from your deepest knowing. The part of you that Kant would say participates in universal reason itself. Here's the paradox at the heart of this introspective transformation. The deeper you journey into your own consciousness, the more you discover that what seemed most personal is actually most universal. This is what Kant pointed to with his concept of the kingdom of ends. The recognition that at our deepest level, we all participate in the same rational nature, the same fundamental humanity. Your growing introspection isn't separating you from others. It's actually connecting you to humanity's shared quest for meaning and authentic being. This is why the insights that emerge from genuine self-examination don't feel like subjective opinions, but rather like discoveries of something that was true all along, waiting to be recognized. Think about how different this is from our culture's approach to personal development. Modern society treats introspection as a means to an end, a way to become more productive, more attractive, or more successful. We're encouraged to examine ourselves only insofar as it helps us adapt to the existing system. But what you're experiencing is something far more revolutionary. Your soul isn't preparing you for a more efficient adaptation to the world as it is. It's preparing you for participation in creating the world as it could be. This understanding places your personal journey in a much larger historical context. Throughout human history, periods of great cultural transformation have always been preceded by waves of individual awakening. From the Renaissance to the Enlightenment to our current moment of global paradigm shift, the pattern remains consistent. Before societies can evolve, individuals must first expand their consciousness beyond the limitations of existing frameworks. Your introspection isn't just changing you, it's part of a collective evolution of human consciousness. This is what Kant was pointing toward with his vision of human progress toward an enlightened age. Not through technological advancement alone, but through the cultivation of authentic autonomy and moral clarity. If you're finding value in this perspective on your introspective journey, I invite you to join our community of fellow travelers. This space is dedicated to supporting each other through these profound transformations, without imposing rigid interpretations or simplistic solutions. We recognize that this journey is both deeply personal and inherently shared. Subscribe to continue exploring these themes with us, knowing that we're committed to content that honors both the philosophical depth of thinkers like Kant and the lived reality of your experience. This isn't about quick fixes or spiritual bypassing. It's about genuine transformation through patient understanding of our consciousness itself. What makes this approach to introspection so powerful is that it integrates ancient wisdom with contemporary scientific understanding. Modern neuroscience has confirmed what Kant intuited philosophically, that our brains are not passive receivers, but active constructors of our reality. Research in neuroplasticity shows that the questions we habitually ask and the concepts we use literally shape our neural pathways, creating the cognitive infrastructure through which we experience life. The introspective process you're undergoing is actually rewiring your brain to perceive connections, meanings, and possibilities that were previously invisible to you. So let me bring this full circle. That growing introspection you've been experiencing, the questions that arise when you're alone with your thoughts, the sense that there must be something more than what you've been taught to value and pursue. This isn't a problem to overcome. It's not overthinking or unnecessary complexity. It's actually the sound of your consciousness expanding to embrace a more complete understanding of reality. What seems like confusion is actually clarity beginning to dawn. What feels like questioning everything is actually your soul sorting truth from conditioning. The discomfort of this process isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's the growing pain of your consciousness stretching beyond its familiar limitations. Remember how we began. With that feeling of staring out the window, lost in thought, questioning choices that once seemed obvious. Now you can recognize this as something magnificent, your soul preparing you for a profound transformation. The introspective path isn't always comfortable, but it leads to a kind of freedom that most people never experience. The freedom that comes from aligning your life with deeper truths rather than superficial appearances. As Kant himself might say, you are awakening from self-imposed immaturity into the dignity of thinking for yourself. And there is no more profound transformation possible in a human life. I invite you to embrace this introspective journey with new appreciation for what it's creating in you. Notice the questions that arise not as problems, but as invitations to greater understanding. Recognize the discomfort not as something gone wrong, but as the feeling of growth itself. And remember that you're not alone in this process. Across the world, countless others are undergoing this same transformation, each in their own unique way. Together, we're participating in humanity's ongoing evolution toward greater wisdom, deeper connection, and more authentic being. Your introspection isn't separating you from life. It's preparing you to participate in it more fully than ever before.